A house is not just where you sleep, it is where people measure how far you have gotten. It is a signal, a milestone, a public announcement that you are winning. But a house can also become something else. It can become a machine that converts your future paychecks into obligations. Most people think the danger is not being able to buy a house. The quieter danger is buying one that is too large for your life. This is the story of what happens when the dream arrives before the math is ready. The house looks beautiful. The pressure does too. You are 32 years old when the idea starts following you. It appears in conversations at work. It appears at family gatherings. It appears in social media posts filled with kitchen islands and perfect backyards. Your apartment is small. Your rent is manageable. Your savings account is growing. But every weekend seems to bring another photo of someone holding house keys and smiling for the camera. People do not ask whether you are happy. They ask whether you own. The question sounds harmless. It rarely is. A house is not just a building. It is a story people tell themselves. Stability, security, adulthood, success. You begin hearing the same sentence everywhere. Buy now before prices go higher. Buy now before you get left behind. Buy now before it is too late. The sentence follows you through lunch breaks and elevator rides. It follows you into grocery store parking lots and family phone calls. Nobody can explain exactly what too late means. They just know they are afraid of it. Fear sells houses. It always has. One afternoon, you tour a home that is slightly above your budget, then another that is much higher. The second one is beautiful. Tall ceilings, new floors, a quiet street lined with trees. Sunlight pours through large windows. The real estate agent speaks carefully. She does not talk about monthly stress. She talks about possibility. She talks about appreciation. She talks about building equity. She talks about lifestyle. The house feels bigger than your life. That is exactly why it works. A month later, you are sitting in a bank branch. The chair feels colder than it should. A loan officer slides papers across a polished desk. Numbers fill the pages. Mortgage payment, property tax, homeowner's insurance, closing costs. The payment is higher than you planned, but technically approved. The system has spoken. If the bank says yes, it must be reasonable. At least that is what you tell yourself. Approval and affordability are not the same thing. Most people learn that later. The day you get the keys feels incredible. Friends arrive with gifts. Family members congratulate you. Photos are taken. Messages flood your phone. For a few weeks, the house feels magical. You walk from room to room at night. You touch the walls. You stand in the empty living room and imagine your future. The mortgage payment is still weeks away. The bills have not started arriving yet. Reality is waiting politely outside the door. It always waits. The first mortgage payment arrives on a quiet morning. You open the banking app while drinking coffee near the kitchen window. The number is larger than rent ever was. You stare at it longer than expected. Then comes the property tax escrow, then insurance, then utilities for a much larger space. The house is still beautiful. The math is becoming visible. Beauty and cash flow are not the same thing. The bills never forget. A few months pass. The house settles into routine. So do the expenses. The air conditioning works harder during summer. The electric bill rises. The landscaping needs attention. The water heater begins making strange noises. A contractor visits. Another bill arrives. Nobody mentioned how many systems a house contains when they were showing photos online. Every system has a lifespan. Every lifespan eventually becomes an invoice. Ownership is maintenance with better marketing. At work, people still admire your house. They compliment the photos. They ask about the neighborhood. They assume you are thriving. Nobody sees the spreadsheet on your laptop at midnight. Nobody sees you moving money between accounts to stay ahead of due dates. Nobody sees you delaying vacations. Nobody sees you saying no to dinners and weekend trips. The house became a symbol for them. For you, it became a schedule. Nobody knows. That is the point. One Friday afternoon, a coworker named Rachel invites everyone on a group trip. She recently financed a luxury SUV. She wears success comfortably, at least from a distance. You decline the trip. Again, Rachel laughs and says you must be saving for something huge. You smile and change the subject. Months later, you learn she carries over $18,000 in credit card debt. She thinks you are behind. You think she is ahead. The numbers disagree with both of you. The kitchen window becomes your recurring ritual. Every morning before work, you stand there with coffee and review your accounts. Mortgage, insurance, utilities, maintenance fund, emergency savings, the same sequence. The same glow from the screen, the same silence. Outside, the neighborhood looks peaceful. Inside, your cash flow feels tight. The house is still the house. The pressure is becoming something else. One winter morning, a repair estimate arrives. A section of the roof needs work. The number is nearly $12,000. You read it twice. Then a third time, the room suddenly feels smaller. The beautiful house that impressed everyone now requires another large check. You remember your apartment years earlier. One phone call fixed everything. Now every problem belongs to you. Freedom and responsibility arrive together. Most people only notice one of them. You begin questioning everything. Maybe you should refinance. Maybe you should take on more debt. Maybe you should use credit cards to smooth out expenses. Maybe this is simply what adulthood feels like. The thoughts arrive late at night when the house is quiet. The mortgage never argues with you. It simply waits. The system does not explain. It executes. Around this time, you reconnect with an older woman named Elena. She worked with your mother years ago. She owns a modest house that looks ordinary from the street. Nothing about it attracts attention. One afternoon, she tells you something that stays with you. She says the goal was never to own the biggest house. The goal was to own the most options. Then she smiles and changes the subject. The sentence remains. You start looking closer. Elena travels frequently. She never seems stressed about repairs. She speaks about money calmly. Eventually, you learn why. Her house was paid off years ago. Her expenses are low. Her investments cover a large portion of her living costs. She does not have the nicest house on the block. She has something more valuable: flexibility. The neighborhood respects square footage. The math respects freedom. The contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Some neighbors drive luxury vehicles and constantly renovate. Others finance pools and outdoor kitchens. Every improvement earns admiration. Every improvement adds another bill. You notice how often people discuss appearances and how rarely they discuss cash flow. The neighborhood rewards visibility. Wealth often prefers privacy. The two are not always friends. Months become years. Your income rises slowly. The mortgage remains. Property taxes rise. Insurance premiums rise. Maintenance never fully disappears. The house appreciates in value, but appreciation does not pay monthly bills. Paper wealth feels impressive at parties. Cash flow feels impressive during emergencies. The difference matters most when nobody is watching. The math is doing what the math does. One evening, you sit by the kitchen window during a storm. Rain taps against the glass. The room is dark except for the glow of your phone. You calculate how much of your income still belongs to you after housing costs. The answer is uncomfortable. The house gave you status. The house took options. Both statements are true. That is what makes the decision difficult. You begin making small adjustments. Extra payments when possible, more savings, less lifestyle inflation, fewer purchases meant to impress strangers. Progress feels slow. Nobody congratulates you for reducing risk. Nobody throws parties when an emergency fund grows. Financial stability rarely creates dramatic photos. It creates quiet mornings. That is enough. Several years later, the pressure is different. The mortgage balance is lower. Your savings are stronger. The fear has softened. The house did not ruin your life, but it taught you something expensive. A home can improve your future or consume it. The difference often comes down to how much room the payment leaves behind. Margin is invisible until it disappears. When people ask whether buying a bigger house is worth it, they usually want a simple answer. There is not one. Some people buy freedom. Some people buy pressure wrapped in hardwood floors and granite countertops. The house itself is rarely the problem. The payment is. The taxes are. The insurance is. The repairs are. The opportunity cost is. The system does not care what the kitchen looks like. Today, you still stand by the kitchen window. The same window that watched excitement become anxiety and anxiety become understanding. The house is quieter now. So are you. Looking back, the lesson was never really about real estate. It was about permission. Every dollar committed to a payment is a dollar that cannot create another option. The house was never the question. The question was how much of your future you were willing to sell for the address.